And it's taken us 2 hours
Yeah.
to figure it out this morning. So I'm Paul Bloomberg, founder of the Core Collaborative. This.
Yeah.
This
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Somewhere there. Yeah.
is Isaac,
Uh-huh.
right? And we're launching our first Facebook coaching session, and they'll be every Wednesday at 3 Eastern. And we're recording all the sessions, and then they will be posted to our Core Collaborative YouTube channel, and you can just Google Core Collaborative YouTube channel and subscribe to it. And I imagine we could probably just put this on the Lunch and Learn playlist. It just makes sense to add this to Lunch and Learn, don't you think?
That's right. Yeah.
Cool.
Lunchtime somewhere.
Yeah, so we had we met as a bigger consultant group, a couple weeks ago, and came up with a bunch of different ways to support our schools, because really they have been the ones supporting us for the last 6 years. I hope it's been reciprocal. I believe it's been reciprocal because we're still partners, but the least that we could do while we're all grounded at home is to find ways to reach out to our partners and new partners and offer some easy, quick tips and suggestions, especially as they're moving into remote learning or virtual learning experiences. What are you thinking, Isaac?
Yeah, I'm just making sure we got that question in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for this really casual banter.
Yeah, right.
And you're preoccupied.
No, we are excited about this, and we've kicked off Lunch and Learn and had a great session with Hacking School Discipline, our friends over there. And
yesterday.
Excited to be getting our
Tuesdays they do their sessions. And then Fridays, teachers throwing out grades with Star Sexting.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I say we jump right in with this first question.
Yeah, jump right in so you can take a nap.
Yeah.
Isaac's wife, Dana, has been sick for how many days?
About a week. Yeah.
About a week.
Yeah.
And so now we're a little worried that Isaac is going to get sick. But he looks like not as faint as normal.
Yeah, right.
So maybe you're flush. I don't know.
Got a little color.
Yeah, you definitely have some color. You look like you're sweating.
Got my TCC jacket on. Maybe that's it.
Okay. So our first question is, how do you achieve clarity in a remote environment? And Isaac and I were talking about this as we were trying to figure this app out this morning. It's really no different than creating clarity if you were teaching in a classroom. And it's probably even more important, right? Because in these virtual environments, it's really important that your learning intentions span the course of a week. And really cutting down the content and giving your kids a lot of practice opportunities, because deliberate practice regarding your intentions will actually accelerate their growth. So we really want to make sure that our learning intentions are crystal clear and that we give lots of kids time and opportunity for practice. Because remember, the number one rule is more opportunities for kids to succeed than fail. So feedback is super important right now. So one way to develop clarity, obviously, is through co-construction of success criteria. So Isaac and I, it looks like Deidre is on.
Yeah, hey Deidre.
Hey Deidre.
We missed you too.
Yeah, we missed you too. And I bet you're missing your kids as well.
Yes.
But one way is to co-construct success criteria, and everyone really knows about this. But you do it the same way in a virtual environment. So the first way is really making sure that your kids have lots of good examples of what the end is. So if you're doing a reading response, they would get to see lots of quality examples of what a quality reading response was and the success criteria that laid alongside of it. So you really so exemplars are really key. Same for mathematics. You just want to hit the exemplars a little later on in the unit. But now that we're going virtual, it probably makes a lot of sense to just give those examples early on, so
Mhm.
kids can really dig in and look at what high quality work looks like. And you can do that with products or performances. Like if, say, the kids are going to do some sort of a TikTok video, and they're going to take something that they've read and turn it into some sort of video of some case, you would do the same thing for that. So the kids would need to see lots of examples of what those performances were. So then you lay the success criteria alongside of the product and performance. And that way kids are super clear about what the criteria is.
Mhm.
Do you have another way, Isaac?
Yeah, and I see a couple people putting some comments in there. So if you got a question or a suggestion as we're going, throw those in. Something I've seen teachers have amazing success with is comparing those examples with some non-examples, so the kids are really able to differentiate. Okay, now I see what it looks like when you've done it well, but really, what are those criteria that make the difference? And so when you see an example that's got 2 or 3 criteria missing, you kind of get the quality of those and start to understand, how does that help this written response be understandable to my audience, or how does that help me use this process to solve a math problem? Or like you said, even for a video, I've made plenty of non-examples in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, me too.
And seeing those, they've been painful in the moment, but then it gives you a sense of like, oh, okay, here's really some other criteria I hadn't thought of, whether it's lighting or sound or background, whatever it might be. And so when we break those down and say, here's an expert writing piece, and here's a proficient, let's compare those. Here's a proficient, and here's a not quite there. What are 2 or 3 things we see different? And then that gives you that opportunity, like you said, those multiple opportunities to practice. Now together we can revise, or that could be a task. Okay, we've analyzed some exemplars. Here's some non-examples. Let's give these real students or these imaginary students, whatever it may be, some quick feedback. How would you make this non-example into an example? And that again can work with reading, writing, video, anything.
Yeah, there's a really great video on Teaching Channel. I know that they charge for it now, but you can get a lot of these videos on YouTube. It's called Learning from Mistakes. And there's a really nice video for math non-examples on how to work those in your class. So far we have exemplars, comparing examples to non-examples. And then I think another one that we use a lot when we're teaching systematic strategies is we'll do a demonstration. And so you could teach each step of the strategy and then ask your kids like what you just did, and then they'll summarize the criteria or the steps that you took to achieve your goal. So I think any sort of demonstration with Think Aloud will be really important. And because you're in remote environments, like just record your Think Alouds, because then you can push them out in Google Classroom, Canvas, Schoology, whatever learning management system that you have, and kids will have access to that model. So like you just have to really slow down when you're doing a demonstration and think through each step systematically and frame it for the kids. This is step 1, and frame it. And then voila, you'll have some success criteria. And then you can push that video out to your kids with that Think Aloud. And for the kids that need an extra model, they'll have it, because you can put it in Google Classroom. You can put the videos in a Google Doc or a Google folder. And so kids can go back and review the lesson through the Think Aloud that you did. What would be another way that you can think of, Isaac, for creating clarity?
Yeah, especially since they're, all 30 of them are out in their different spaces, is that they can help look for some of those exemplars once they've got the criteria, or even while they're still in that determining and revising criteria stage, to look out. And then you had mentioned earlier, like they could share it on a Padlet, they could add links to a Google Doc, all these different ways. But if we're looking, a classic example I see all the time in elementary schools is when they go on geometry hunts and they look for certain types of angles, or they look for certain shapes, or they, different things like that. Everybody shares their examples, and then we can really define, okay, what is a quadrilateral? Well, here's 30 examples you guys came up with. What do they have in common? Oh, they've
Yeah,
This,
definitely.
this, this.
And
Yeah.
I think the older kids can really go out and search for models on their own of any kind of disciplinary writing that they're doing. If they're writing
Right.
proposals, they can easily get online and find proposals. So like the older they get, the more that the co-construction can live with the kids. So they can actually look for models, they can upload their models, and then you could co-construct success criteria for all the models that the kids get. So just summarizing what we just talked about, obviously analyzing exemplars, those could be products or performances, comparing examples to non-examples, and then demonstration with think alouds. And then the last one, like what Isaac said, is having the kids go out and look for models of success all on their own. So that's our first coaching tip, and it really brings the formative practices from impact teams and remote learning back together, but it's really no different. You'll just have to slow down even more. And one of our users said that's the power of tech, creating examples that students can review again and again. And I think that's the key with tech, is like kids can have access to these examples, and we should be even better at creating clarity for the kids because of the tech. So we really believe that the tech actually enhances this work. It doesn't really detract from it.
And the level of clarity I have to have as a teacher, knowing I'm sending it out and don't have the expressions on your face or that immediate question, that really sets you up for success, because you have to think through every possible misconception before you put it out there.
Yeah, you want to give us our next question? It'll be our last question.
Yes.
We're trying to keep these very short.
So how do you strengthen relationships with remote learning?
Yeah, and so one thing that we've been doing with our consultants and our internal team is a few times a week we get on Zoom just to do an SEL check, where we check in with each other about how they're feeling, and nobody has to do it. They volunteer, but it is a really nice way. We also have a thing set. We use Basecamp, which is a project management software, but it emails all of our consultants automatically every day, and it asks them what their goals are for the day and how they're feeling. And it's been really great for me to see 60 responses. Like I can see 60 little responses from consultants and our full-time employees. And if anybody writes anything that I'm like a little bit worried about, I can reach out to them directly via text or via email and check on them. So I think these SEL checks really have worked in our own company, and I know a lot of teachers that are doing them right now in their morning meetings and things like that. Is there any other ideas that you have around strengthening relationships, Isaac?
Definitely. And related to that SEL one, we just shared a lunch and learn along those lines today. So I threw the link into the little scrolling piece on the bottom, the crawler.
Yeah.
But something else that could be powerful is, because they don't have that face-to-face interaction, is that they can use discussion boards and, like Padlet we mentioned earlier, and be able to comment on each other's comments, ask each other questions, and even do a little bit of this checking in with each other. How'd this go for you? How is it working? What did you learn? What are you wondering? And like, hey, some appreciative feedback. Like, I noticed you did this, this, and this from the success criteria. Maybe the next step would be try this out. So it keeps them in contact and building those relationships.
Yeah, so the rules of discussion are the same in a chat room. We want to build a discussion, not just share out ideas. So like the same thing that we're working on in a classroom, we will want to grow a discussion around an idea. We use those same techniques in a discussion board, where kids have to add on to other people's thinking before we're just sharing ideas in isolation. So just keep in mind, all the good practice that you do in your classroom applies to a virtual conversation well, whether it be a discussion board or whether we're bringing our kids online in like a Zoom room or Google Hangout or something like that. So another way, and we already kind of talked about it, would be these morning meetings where all the kids get to hang out and be together. And I know Zoom has a small group chat So you can have them in full group and then click it to small group,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll automatically get the kids in partnerships. So I think if you have Zoom or something like that, if you don't have that feature, you could give the kids partnerships and they could do that at another time. But I think this idea of having virtual time for your whole class to connect and see each
Mm-hmm.
other, and even if you're just kind of sharing, things that are surprising that are happening at home, or things that you're really proud about, anything like that will help to build and strengthen relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have another idea,
Yeah.
Isaac?
Yeah, and one of our users, mentioned that idea of using like a Google form to check in with your whole class, similar to what we're doing as a company. And they also mentioned Flipgrid, which if you've not seen, just Google Flipgrid, very easy to use, no matter what age group, and a great way to see each other. So our partners from Hacking School Discipline, Brad and Nathan, are really working on these ideas of doing like virtual restorative circles. So the same restorative practices that you can do face-to-face in your classroom, getting in similar to that morning meeting, but working through whatever restorative practices you use. And with questions or wanting more ideas for that, head over to the Hacking School Discipline Facebook page. They'll be on again next Tuesday, but anytime you have questions like what would this look like virtually, throw a question in there. They've got some great ideas and great examples.
And they have a lot of circle prompts that they've given out
Mm-hmm.
and everything. So I think those restorative circles work really well for this work. Another one would be just personalized messages to learners. So just making sure, like, for example, today, like there are some employees that I don't really interact with much. They're not really on my team, but I made a concerted effort to text them both today. So I think like just remembering that the same things apply, that a personal message from a teacher, whether it be via Google Classroom or in their inbox, like that helps kids feel special. And I know this is a little dated, but Isaac does a lot with postcards with people. But I think like now would be a really nice time for kids to get something in the mail, a postcard in the mail, just letting them know that you are thinking about them, because, this isolation, we're all going a little, crazy. And so I think
crazy, right?
A little stir crazy. So I think anything that you can do to get them to see that you really care about them, it really matters. So I think postal service works really great. And it's probably a new way of communicating to our youngest learners that they're not really used to.
Even if they're 18.
Yeah, totally. Do you have another idea, Isaac,
Yeah.
for strengthening relationships?
And I was looking for postcards, but I just put them in the mailbox, so I don't have them around me.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
Yeah, so, with this, the opportunity to give that evidence-based feedback using those success criteria. So we kind of mentioned it in the last tips, but when they give that peer feedback, it not only keeps them in contact, but like you said, it gives them opportunities to add on and build on and question each other. And we started with clarity. Well, what better way to get deep transferable clarity than to get into discussion with a peer and say, I thought it meant this. Yeah, but I thought it looked like this. Well, what about that example she shared? Oh, yeah, well, when this teacher got on, he showed this. And so as they're sharing that feedback, it's more than just the feedback. It'll spark those conversations. And just knowing somebody's looking at your work gives it that added value and makes you feel like this isn't just something I have to do. I belong to this class, and someone out there is paying attention to what I'm doing.
Yeah, definitely. So I think like all of your learning management systems have ability to partner kids up for peer feedback. So a lot of our schools, that's kind of the norm in our schools, self and peer assessment. So don't lose that pedagogy because you're moving remote. Just remember that the little tasks that the kids do, just make sure that they're smaller paragraphs and things like that. Like don't do longer assignments, because it'll be really hard to give really good feedback to the kids. But short, quick writes and paragraphs, pretty much about anything, feedback helps to build relationships. And so it's good, positive, specific feedback to kids, and then giving them a little pointer to help them grow. So I think this idea of feedback is also super important. Another one that I learned from Star is using Voxer. And although I'm horrible about Voxer, it's like a walkie-talkie. I know that she used Voxer a lot with her students, and I've been tinkering around with it because I have a lot of time now. But I think sometimes, the kids hearing your feedback would be a little bit better. So I think Voxer would be a really great app to download and experiment. And I think definitely with your older kids, they might really like Voxer because they could send their teacher a quick Vox quickly, and the teacher could actually hear it. And so I think it's a lot more personal. I think we already went over the other one that we were going to talk about. So I think the last one will be yours.
Yeah. So we had a wonderful core chat. If you're on Twitter, check out hashtag core chat. And last night, Marisol really led us through some thinking about cultural relevance at any time, but especially in these times where we are separated. And while we hit this one, just want to say on the screen, you can see we've got a bit.ly link. If you've got your own questions, go to that survey. You can ask us anything and we'll join in and share it. But it's so powerful to give them an opportunity and create time and space for them to share about their cultures. And that can be some of these things they're doing at home. It can start very simple and be just as much as like, what is your family doing while you're at home? What are you talking about? What are you eating? What are you missing out on? What holidays are you celebrating that you're now celebrating in a different way? And can go even a little deeper. I'll throw in the comments some great visuals we had from that'd be a great guide for you, because they will need a little bit of structure. Give them some question prompts to get them started. But then when they just have that opportunity to share something about their own lives, it helps them understand each other better and get that deeper connection. And then what better way to get some questions going to find out we're all in the same class, we're all in this together, but we have some really different realities.
Yeah, and just kind of summarize, I'll summarize that we talked about some sort of an emotional check-in every day. Schools that are using a mood meter could use that. There's an emoji thing for checking in with emotions. We talked about using discussion boards and how important it is that good quality discussions online are the same as in person. We have to grow conversations together. Morning meetings and check-ins, virtual restorative circles a la our Hacking School Discipline friends, personalized messages to learners, evidence-based feedback, Voxer messages, peer feedback, and students really sharing stories about their culture. So that concludes our first Facebook Live coaching. We actually use this app. What's the app called?
Be Live.
Be Live.
Yeah.
And it took us almost half the day to figure it out. But we will be back next Wednesday at 3 Eastern. And this video will live on our Lunch and Learn playlist on our YouTube Core Collaborative YouTube channel. So please subscribe to that channel. And we will see you next week.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Are we live?
It says it stopped.